Hello there everyone, this is Miriam, pain coach and mind-body practitioner, and in this video I wanted to focus specifically on how to handle pain flare-ups, especially if you have embarked on the journey of mind-body healing, chronic pain recovery or TMS. So I know that a lot of people feel disappointed and want to give up on healing because they suddenly have a flare-up. Because first they feel that there's a little bit of progress as they're doing some work, and then their pain or symptoms flare up again. It's really frustrating, disappointing, and upsetting. And because of that, they feel that they have not made any progress after all. Right? That after all, whatever they're doing, maybe the emotional work, the awareness work, the mind-body work is not working. But in this video, I'm here to tell you that that's not necessarily the case. I'm here to explain what flare-ups really are when your symptoms are a case of mind-body syndrome or neuroplastic symptoms. So when you have had pain for a while, if you're prone to flare-ups, that is always an indication of what is going on up here in your emotional landscape. So flare-ups, in a sense, are never a regression. They're always a reflection of what's going on emotionally, assuming, of course, that your symptoms are a case of mind-body syndrome, which I know a lot of people who watch my videos know or suspect that their symptoms are neuroplastic. But I know that a lot of people start doubting whether their symptoms are really neuroplastic, start doubting whether the work they've been doing is really going to have its effect when they suddenly have a flare-up. It could be that you wake up and your pain is way worse. It could be that as your day goes by, suddenly, your old pain that has almost disappeared or that had already disappeared just flares up again out of the blue. You have no idea why. You suspect that maybe after all you're really damaged, your body's really injured, and so on and so forth, and you spiral back into the fear cycle. However, I'm here to repeat, flare-ups in the case of mind-body syndrome are never a regression, they're a reflection. They're a reflection of what's going on. And sometimes we don't notice this process happening because as we're going about our lives, we filter out certain stuff and we're not fully aware of how we're processing things. So just to give you an example, let's say that you're having a pretty good day. You think that the mind-body work that you're doing, whether it's journaling, whether it's brain rewiring, whatever you're doing, that's not the subject of this video, but you think and feel that it's working. And then suddenly you meet an old friend of yours. Maybe you used to go running together and you're not there yet, you're not running yet, you've not resumed running yet, even though your pain is better. And this friend actually tells you that she's about to run a marathon and she's looking really excited about it. And on a conscious level, you're really happy for her, you encourage her, you express your wish that one day you'll also be able to run a marathon. And that's it. Your friend walks away, you get back to work or whatever you're doing, and suddenly you start feeling that pain shoot up again. Now, you might not be aware that the conversation actually triggered your flare-up. If you think that you're okay with your friend running a marathon while you're still not running at all, if you think that you're not bothered by it and you repress those emotions that are natural to have, right? When we miss doing something and we see someone else, succeeding at it. If you're not aware of what's going on inside of you, then you might get a flare-up, right? And that might really throw you off because you're like, oh, you see, I'm really never gonna get there. After all, maybe I've just been kidding myself. But what has happened in that case is just a reflection of what had been going on, a reflection of what happened inside of you during and after that conversation. A part of you remembered that you have a problem because otherwise maybe you would be running marathons with your friend. So it could be as simple as just remembering that you have an issue. It could be as simple as someone asking you how you're doing. Even with all the good intentions, someone might ask you, oh, how are you doing today? And you're like, yeah, I'm making improvements. Maybe you tell them that you're following this mind-body stuff. Maybe you don't. But you're like, yeah, I'm making improvement. But because the person has reminded you that maybe you have a problem, then you might have a flare-up later on that day or the next day. Another reason why you might have a flare-up is that you decide to experiment a little bit with things that you've been avoiding. So you expose yourself, which is great, right? You have to resume normal activities after all. But then maybe that doubt creeps into your mind. You're like, ooh, can my body really handle this? What if I'm injured actually? What if there's something wrong? And even if you have like this minuscule little thought as you're exercising, as you're exposing yourself, that your body might not be able to handle this amount of activity or movement, then that can actually lead to a flare-up either there and then or later on that day or the next day, right? So again, it's a reflection of that voice of doubt that you had inside, of that fear that you still had lingering inside of you. And this is why it's important to always try to negate our fears as much as possible. Not to invalidate them, but when we know that our fears are reverting back to believing that we have a structural problem, then we have to be firm, knowing that we have an emotional problem, we're doing the work, they're just EMS. We have to keep on reminding ourselves about this and to catch these sneaky doubtful thoughts a little bit earlier. So that's one of the best ways actually to handle flare-ups. Either when you catch yourself having a negative expectation or thought, or when you're having the flare-up itself, you could be like, oh, what's happening? Miriam told me that this is a reflection, not a regression. So what could my flare-up be a reflection of? And then you start to think, oh yeah, I met my friend yesterday, or oh, I had that conversation with my mother. It actually made me pretty angry. Or, I don't know, I put all these sort of pressures on myself, all these things on my to-do list. I'm obviously not liking this, I don't like this pressure. And that maybe gets you back to expressive writing and journaling out your frustrations, your emotions, getting clear on how you're really feeling. So this process already helps. It helps you redirect your attention from the flare-up, from the pain or symptom, into the emotional problem. So you're redirecting your focus to the actual psychological trigger, right? To the actual emotions that might have led to the flare-up. So that's actually always the best way to handle a flare-up. Rather than saying like, oh my God, now I am, this is a fail, this is not working. Why, going back to have a dozen tests and panicking? Try asking yourself first, but what could have triggered this? What is this flare-up a reflection of? And journal out, write down any possible reasons. And if any emotions come up, frustration, dissatisfaction, just write them down. Even though sometimes it might feel like guesswork, you're not exactly sure what caused the flare-up, it doesn't matter. Just write down what's in your head, what's been going on in the past week or so, right? What kind of conflicts you might have had, what kind of things you might not have liked, and actually see what happens. Because chances are that if you express yourself, then the flare-up will lessen. The final tip I'm going to give here as to how to handle a flare-up is to not give in to the flare-up and give it full validity. So we validate a flare-up as being dangerous when we shrink away from any activity that has caused it or that might make it worse. So let's say you believe that your flare-up was caused by walking a little bit longer the previous day. So you're having a flare-up and you decide like, okay, today, no walking at all. I'm just gonna stay in bed. That's actually validating the flare-up. That's actually telling your brain, hey, walking is dangerous. We therefore have a structural problem, which is, not true if you have TMS. Therefore, we're not gonna do it. So what happens is that the flare-up can get better, but the next time that you're gonna walk, your brain is going to be reminded that walking is dangerous, right? So this is why we don't want to shrink away completely from activity when we have a flare-up. We want to ideally keep going in this gentle way, Not in a way that feels pressured, like, oh no, I have a flare-up, but I still have to walk 10 kilometers today. It's not like that, but more like, okay, I have a flare-up, but, let me just go for a really short walk, maybe to some peaceful place. Let me just gently move my body, so as long as you don't completely shrink away, stay in bed, not do stuff, cancel all activities. These things are actually validating a flare-up, making it more likely to reoccur the next time that you re-expose yourself to an activity or to a movement. So this is actually the opposite of what most people feel inclined to do. I know that. And this is why it feels so tough in the beginning, because with mind-body work for chronic pain, sometimes you have to do the very opposite of what you're inclined to do in order to recover. But there's a reason why we do this, is to train the brain to feel safe again, and it's to dial in the right beliefs about our body and to boost trust in our body, right? And to make ourselves more resilient to the next flare-up. Because, hey, life can be tough. Life can be distressing. We go through all sorts of stuff. Of course, we're going to have symptoms at some point, right? But knowing what they are, knowing they're a reflection of what's going on, knowing how to handle them, how to react to them, really makes all the difference. So I hope that this video has helped you. If you find my content helpful, I'd just like to announce that I'm going to be releasing my first mind-body book very soon. It's called The Pain Secret: Unlocking the Mind-Body Connection to Overcome Chronic Pain and Symptoms. In the book, I share my own recovery story, and I help you identify the secret triggers that lurk behind chronic pain or symptoms. I help you understand why symptoms develop, why they persist, and I also help you take action in order to step out of the fear-pain cycle, in order to heal yourself. I help you create the right conditions to step out of pain, basically. So it includes also some essential awareness exercises to really help you understand your situation and to give you ideas on how to break free of it. I explain all the different factors that contribute to recovery in the book, so if you feel called to, you'll be able to purchase it on Amazon soon. I'm going to be posting a link in the description once it's out, and yeah, feel free to check it out. So with that said, that's all from me for today, and I'll see you again next time. Bye bye.